There's no forest here. There's just a bunch of trees.
Howdy folks, Grok the DuckFarmer here, and I'm playing a little Engineers Force 3, and you know what time it is? It's hot tub time. Gotta love a nice good soak after a long hard bit of work. Relaxes those muscles so very nicely. Oh yeah, gotta love it. Okay, that's just silly. And I do like the fact that I am fire resistant. It is very nice thanks to the armor, but it is hard to see. Anyway, we were talking last time, demon ingots. We could get demon ingots. We could get demon ingots from demon chickens. Yes, the demon metal chicken would go ahead and do that, which is no problem because magical wood, got that. But the problem, though, is getting that moonstone chicken. Well, that's lunar reactive dust plus blaze rods. Well, I've got blaze rods. Lunar reactive dust. Well, that is the redstone crystal chicken and lapis. Well, I've got lapis. Don't have this. There is a bug in the current chickens where the breed, it says right there, redstone and prismarine. That's what it should be. And that's what I set the config to. It still doesn't breed. And there is an open ticket on that, and the next version of the chicken should fix this, so it actually will work. And even 9% is pretty low odds, but I've done a full stack of seeds there, no joy, and I said, fine, we'll do it the other way. So the other method is, it says, there's some information here, legend tells of ancient creatures that blah, 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 they infused their bones, the dead, but blah, 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 but the most powerful creations were lava wells, where they would throw special metals, hoping that their tributes would be answered with riches. So what you do is you make a structure like this, and some people say you need all 8 around it, some people say you just need the 4, and I really don't care, I've got plenty. But then you throw in your offerings, and I would say do it one at a time, because you've got a chance of getting an ingot back and lots of sparks all over. And there, right there, I tossed in one and it just got consumed because those demons are greedy little buggers, and so they did that. So I need, there we go, there's 6. And that should be sufficient to go ahead and upgrade this drum. So let's come over to here. And if we're going to use this, okay, that's what it is, the Klein bottle. Do I have, oh, I've got enough for 2. Oh, cool, cool, cool. Okay, so that goes there. These go here, and then the Klein bottles go there, and now I have a demonically gargantuan drum, which is a huge amount. And let's go ahead and snag this. This has, you can see 4,000 buckets, you know, or since everything is in milliliters. It's almost 8, but that's okay. Over here, this has been going like gangbusters. And if we take a look at this little beastie, this has 35, this is going on 36 million. So I have gone ahead and stopped the influx because mainly I wanted to empty this out. Let's triple check and make sure. Yep, it's completely empty. Perfect, that's exactly what I wanted. And that's got water in it. I don't want water in it, so I'm going to break that. I'm also going to break you. Let's put this drum here. There's my, what's it? And then I need my configurator out of here. Are you still set on liquids? Yay, you are. Okay, so I'm taking this 4,000 buckets and I'm running through this process a second time. And this is going to produce for me liquid lithium. Holy cow, that produced a lot of liquid lithium really fast. So that's what I'm looking at. And since I've got an empty drum, that's got the brine. So let's go ahead and swap this. And we will put that right there so the lithium goes in here. So we're going to let that go ahead and suck it. Are you done? Wow. Okay, that was really fast. That's a lot of lithium or brine chewed up from the lithium. So, yeah, a lot of brine for the lithium. Yes, there you go. So, this should wrap up pretty soon. And how much? It looks like we may be getting, I don't know, we had 4,000. we may get a tenth back for the lithium production out of the brine. So that's quite a reduction. Yep, still doing its thing. Still doing its thing. Going on down. All right. I could make a complete separate one of these to make lithium, but since I don't need great galloping gobs of lithium, and I'm not actually going to do anything with lithium right now, we'll go ahead and not worry about that. Instead, just processing through, both say empty, good. Let's go ahead and break you. And, let's go ahead and start that going again. But before I do that, always pull out your NP. Yeah, see, it's 1/10 the size of what it used to be. All right, where's my gargantuan drum? That's lithium, that's the brine. Let's put the brine back. And now let's take my, no. We got the water, because we need to shove water into there. All right, water, get back in there, you. All right, that will start producing again my lithium. Yep, there goes the water. Brine. It is producing brine. This is my lithium right here. All right, confused? Yes, I'm all sorts of confused. But that's okay. We'll let that proceed on. I don't super need great galloping gobs of that, but, good enough. And then comes the question, okay, why do I need the brine? Well, let's take a quick look at brine. Brine is interesting. If we take a look at the brine here, it's coming, thermal concentrator here. So you get the water in your thermal evaporation controller and set up, and you will get the brine out, which, could lead to the question of what is brine? I hear you say. Well, I'll tell you what brine is. Brine is salty water. And that's why it's evaporating. It's taking the water with little trace amounts of salt in it and evaporating it down to a more concentrated, a more salty water, and that becomes brine. And you may be asking, how salty is that briny water? And that's a very good question. It's time for science. Okay, so if you take a liter of water and you have no salt in it, it has 0 parts of salt per thousand, or per million, or per billion. If it's got none in it, it's got 0. And that's your traditional water is that we drink is very, very low. 1/10 of 1% of salt in the water. Let's see, 1/10. Okay. Parts per thousand. I'm going to do numbers in parts per thousand. So that's a gram of salt in a liter of water. And a gram you can think of is like a raisin, pretty much. So if you have 1/10 of a raisin of salt tossed in your liter of water, that's your regular drinking water. That's the sort of drinking water we want. You have sports drinks, and they actually have more, which is just fine, because you need those salts. You've done a whole bunch of work. You've sweated a whole bunch. You've lost a lot of the salts in your system. You need to replenish those electrolytes, so you go ahead and drink salty water. Those are the sports drinks. But you get to the point where it's too salty. At 2 parts per thousand, or 2 parts per thousand, the water is now too salty to actually do plants. Plants really don't like 2 parts. At 9 parts per thousand, we're talking blood. That's the amount of salt in your blood. That's why blood is salty, because you've got that much in there. And 10 parts per thousand is about the Baltic Sea, which is the least salty of all the seas. And that's why drinking salt water is bad for you. It's greater than what you have in your body. It means your body is going to try to expel out all that extra salt, and it's going to do so by flushing it out, which means it dehydrates you faster. Not good, especially if you're on a raft in the middle of the ocean and you're already dehydrated from the sun. Don't drink the salt water. It's a problem. But the Baltic Sea is the least salty of all the seas, and it's still salty enough that it will kill you if you drink too much of that. If you drink just a little bit and then get a bunch of fresh water afterwards, you're okay. Black Sea is 18 parts per thousand. Your average seawater is around 35. That's where your Atlantic and Pacific is. The Mediterranean is 38 parts per thousand because it's kind of in a bowl there in the center of the almost equator. Well, okay, it's a little bit north of the equator. It gets a lot of sun, and so it evaporates a little bit more, and so it's a little saltier. But you know, that's not the saltiest of all the seas. The Red Sea tends to be even saltier, around 40 parts per thousand, and so that's as salty as we get, right? Nope. There's the Little Manitou, maybe if I pronounce it right, Manitou Lake in Canada. That has 180 parts per thousand. That's 5 times salt water. Holy cow, that's salty. But that's still not that bad, because the Great Salt Lake in the United States, that's 9 times saltwater concentration, because that's at 317 parts per thousand. But that's still not the saltiest. What about Don Juan Pool in Antarctica? Yes, Antarctica, way down there in the south of the pole. 474 parts per thousand. That's 13.5 times as salty as the ocean. This little tiny pool that they found in there, the water's evaporating out, and it really doesn't get runoff and anything coming in. It doesn't get rain down there because it's too cold, and so it's really salty. And some of the scientists are saying they've actually found life in that pool. Others are saying they're full of it. I don't know. I'm not a scientist doing that, but that's the thing. So we've got some great numbers here. Freshwater is about half a part per thousand or less. Brackish water is 30 parts down. Your saline, which is kind of seawater, that's 30 to 50 parts per thousand. And from 50 parts on up, that's called briny water. That's the stuff we're making right here. This brine, 50 parts per thousand, that's really concentrated. That's very concentrated. Why are we getting fresh water and turning it into brine when we could get salt water and turn it into brine so much faster? I don't know. But we're going to do something with that, but just not right now. Okay, so kudos to both of you who managed to stay awake through that lecture on brine and all the goodness of saltiness. Yeah, I geek a little bit about science, and I love it. But we're going to geek a little bit now about Mekanism and ore processing. Now, one of the things that's really, really cool about Mekanism is its ability to process ores a whole bunch. So this area here is below my ME network, and that's where I put all the cable runs and all that fun stuff. Well, I hammered this out earlier. This space, we're going to do ore processing, and since I've got the Guardian farm, I decided to go ahead and do a little branding of that here. And, you know, obviously it hasn't been cleaned out for a while because I've got stalactites and stalagmites growing on here. Stalactites hang tight to the ceiling, and stalagmites might grow to the ceiling. Yeah, that's how I remember it. All right, so ore processing with Mekanism. There's 5 different layers of it, or levels of it, or tiers, or however you want to say it, and I'll probably use them all. There's the 1x ore, so every ore that you give it will give you back 1 ingot, or 2, 3, 4, and 5 ingots, and it's quite involved for 4 and 5, and we'll deal with those later. But for right now, in this episode, let's go ahead and deal with these 3. And if we just go ahead and grab this smelter, some power, and some iron. All right, so the easiest is you just make the energized smelter, and you power it somehow, and you know the easy way is just stick a cube next to it, and then you can go ahead and feed it some sort of ore. And if you configure this so it's automatically ejecting and out to the right, and I almost always send my ores out to the right. Well, I lied. Upstairs they're dropping down to a central location, but that's okay. There's my iron ingot. I love it. Doesn't need any cables or anything like that. Perfect. Very easy to make. And with a little bit of power, you've got all the smelting needs you've got taken care of. But with a little bit more work, you can go ahead and go to 2 times ore processing and double your stuff. So let's go to this thing here. Let's move. We don't need the diorite. Let's grab this stuff. All right, now one of the things I like about the Mekanism ore processing is that it builds on itself. So in this case, because it's got two machines here, I am going to go ahead and run some energy cable underneath. Sometimes I'll do it behind. Those are typically the way I run my energy. And this one, same as before, we've got the energized smelter or advanced factories of it, where this one does one. You could also have it do 3, 5, or 7 simultaneously, and I went cheap just to make this one. But it adds on this new item, the enrichment chamber, and this is really worth grabbing because you can enrich stuff like, say, redstone ore. Instead of breaking it and getting somewhere between 1 and 6 or however much you get out of it based off of the fortune you may or may not have on your pick, you can get like 12 redstone dust out of that, which is really, really nice. So very, very well worth getting that. And you can see we've got 2 of these pulverized irons coming out. Thermal foundation. Yay for unit dictionaries. Anyway, these are set up so this will double your process. And there we go. Iron. Yay for iron. Pretty easy to set it up. Shouldn't take you very long once you can make these 2 machines and power them up. Do it. You got your ore doubling. And as easy as that is, it's not that much harder to go ahead and get ore tripling done. Now, so far in this pack, I've not done ore tripling just because I've got chickens upstairs and they produce gobs and gobs of stuff, so I really don't need them. However, they are handy to have, and we're going to go ahead and explore the ore tripling here. So again, this all just builds up on itself. So we got the energized smelter. Let's go ahead and grab the enrichment chamber. Ba-dum-bum. So same as before as we've got over there, but it needs 2 more machines to triple the ores. It needs the crusher, and this is useful to have because a lot of other things that you need to crush down, say obsidian down to dust, or if you want to turn, here's where I got to remember, because different things have different recipes. I think cobblestone in here will turn into sand, and in others cobblestone will turn into flint, which can then be, yeah. But you can look up all the recipes. Oh, hey, show recipes. Well, look at that. What we can do. 65 pages. So there's tons and tons of stuff where you can go through and crush these things down and oh, go back there. You can take wool of any sort and get string. Yay! You know, there's tons of things like that you can use. So having the crusher around is really, really handy, and that's why I like doing all this. Purification chamber. That is the next piece that we need. And for this to work, it needs oxygen. If we look at the recipes here, if it has oxygen plus, say in this case, bauxite ore, it will make 3 aluminum clumps, or mithril clumps, or nickel clumps, or whatever. It's tripling the ore at this point. And that means it needs oxygen. Well, we can do that. Let's go ahead and grab these bits. All right. Might as well grab the ore while we're here. So this is the electrolytic separator. And we used that before. If we just slap that down real quick, it splits some fluid into 2 different gases. And in this case, we're going to go ahead and split the water into hydrogen and oxygen. And the way this is designed, it always works hydrogen on the left and oxygen on the right. Well, I don't care anything about the hydrogen, so I'm going to actually go ahead and dump the excess on that. Actually, here, let's just leave it on idle for right now because I want to show off something. Science. And you could do something like the Mekanism pump. That works out very, very nicely. I'm going to go ahead and use the sink because, get out of my way, you. Because the sink works very, very nicely in unlimited water supply. So let's go ahead and pump that into there. It's a little light flashing on because the electrolytic separator here has done a little bit of work. And if we take a look, oxygen, hydrogen. And the hydrogen goes out the left side of it when you're looking forward at it, and the oxygen goes off the right. So I put it in backwards. So to the left is the hydrogen, which we don't care about, and to the right goes the oxygen. Now I could take it and bump it up right against the purification chamber if I rotated it, and so I oriented it this way. I could just be feeding it straight oxygen. But I really prefer instead to use tanks. And here, if we just plop it on here, that red dot always points to you when you place it. That is, well, by default, that's where it outputs, and everything else is inputs. So I'm going to take this. Boy, that took forever. Flying really makes it slow. And I'm going to drop it this way so it will output from there into the tank, and then from there into here. But before we do that, science. 1,200 oxygen, 2,400 hydrogen. There's twice as much hydrogen as oxygen here, and it's stopped because it's full. And when it's full, it idles and doesn't do anything more. That's the way it actually works, and kudos to the mod author for doing this right. H2O has 2 hydrogens to every oxygen, so if you separate those components of the molecule, you will get twice as much hydrogen, both volume and number of atoms, as you will the oxygen. So kudos for him. I'm going to go ahead and set this to dump excess, so the hydrogen just goes away. I could process that and burn it and make power. I don't care. I'm really looking out for the oxygen in this case. So let's go ahead and drop the oxygen here. And so now this is going to continue to run. That's why the light turned on. And it's just pouring the oxygen here into the tank, which has already pumped it into the purification chamber and filled it up. So the first step in this chain to triple the ore is to put the ore into the purification chamber. That will get you the clumps, which they're already gone. These clumps, these 3 iron clumps, are going to get crushed into dirty ore. And it's already over here, dirty iron dust. And then that goes into the enrichment chamber, which is going to become just regular pulverized iron in this pack. And once that is smelted away, off it goes into the chest, and we have iron. Are you done yet? Yep, just did it. So there's 1 of 3, and it slowly processes through. So all of these 3 machines, the crusher, enrichment chamber, and the smelter, there are more advanced versions of these where you can do like the crusher, if we're doing 1, or we could do 3, 5, or 7 simultaneous crushings. Well, it makes sense, since this purification chamber produces 3 clumps. It makes sense to go ahead and upgrade this crusher to the triple so that it can process all 3 simultaneously. Likewise, once it's processed all 3 of those, if you can upgrade the enrichment chamber, can I? I'm not sure if I can. Enrichment. Oh, yes, I can. I can go ahead and make the higher ones. This guy here. Stop. Click in there. Stop it. This guy here, Shift I. It upgrades. It allows for multiple processings at once. This one does 3. There's the 5 and there's the 7. Of course, it chews up more power, but that's okay. In any case, it makes sense to make this the triple, that the triple, and this the triple, because that way it can handle as fast as this is chewing out stuff it needs to go through. And that way you can get the best bang for your buck for the ores that you process. Also, I have none of the upgrades in these, and it's well worth getting upgrades into them. Definitely well worth getting the energy upgrades, because that makes it use less energy for each cycle, as well as it stores more, so it's more efficient that way. I do like speed up in those, because that makes them process through, which eats more energy, but if you've got the energy, that's fine. And this one definitely is well worth to add the gas. Skip the muffling. The gas upgrade, because that means when this is processing stuff and it needs to consume oxygen, it will consume less oxygen for each process that it's doing. So well worth getting that gas one in there. you know, if you've got gobs and gobs and you don't care, burn it up. I don't care. It's just fine. But well worth go ahead and putting all the upgrades on here, and muffling too, because these things are noisy. Not to me, because I turned the volumes down on them. So there you go. Pretty easy to get these going. Definitely early game. Once you can make Mekanism machines, go ahead and get yourself a smelter in place. I like to upgrade them to get the 3 and 5 going. The 2, just 2 machines to get that to happen. 3 is a little bit more involved, particularly since if you've got cooking for blockheads or some of the other mods that give you an infinite water source, then getting the water is really easy. Otherwise, you've got the electrolytic separator that you're going to have to pump water into, and Mekanism does have an option for that. Mekanism does have the mech pump, in which you can go ahead and pump up water from below. Pretty simple little recipe here. I believe you need either a 1x3 water source underneath it, or possibly a 2x2. I typically have made 3x3 water sources underneath my pumps, just to make sure there's plenty of water underneath it, particularly when I upgrade it to a huge amount of speed and energy in there, so just really just pumping out the water. And when you're processing these at higher speeds and you've got all the upgrades in place, you know, these already do, because this is what I was using for my the hydrogen for the jetpack. You can strip out a simple pump very quickly, but that works, and it's not all that hard to get this arranged. Speaking of hard, those guys are a little bit harder to make. Yeah, the 4x and 5x processing, yeah, they're a little bit more involved, and part of that was getting brine, and I've got a lot of brine for that. But we're not going to cover the 4x and 5x processing right now. We'll do that later. But we got a bunch of stuff done. We've got those single, double, and triple ore processing shown off. And I really like Mekanism for that. I really do like Mekanism for that. I'll set up a tripler very early on. Quadruple and quintuple, not so much. Just because in my look, there's so much work that has to be done with both of these processes, and they can cause some server issues, particularly if you have lots and lots of the thermal evaporation. And Mekanism has some problems. Has had, I can't say if it still is, had problem with the multi-block structures being kind of tick hogs on a server. And I don't know whether it's just because people have set them up wrong or set up too many, or it's just Mekanism. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, got a bunch of things done. That makes me glad. This has been Grok the DuckFarmer here on the Engineers Force 3 server, having a little blast with Mekanism. And thanks for watching. Bye.